Controversy is swirling around the release of the Zimbabwe presidential election result. Opposition leader Nelson Chamisa is expressing contempt for what he calls the vote rigging in the high-stakes election narrowly won by incumbent Emmerson Mnangagwa in the first vote without long-time leader Robert Mugabe on the ballot. A short time ago, Mnangagwa held a press conference and said, quote, "It's time to put politics behind us." He also urged calm and called for unity among the Zimbabwean citizens to move forward as a nation. Chamisa is questioning the outcome of Monday's vote, in which he lost out to President Mnangagwa of the ruling ZANU-PF party. Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission Chair Priscilla Chigumba announced the result late Thursday, saying Mnangagwa had won by 50.8% of the votes cast, while Chamisa garnered 44.3%.
The votes received by Mnangagwa Emmerson Mnangagwa of ZANU-PF party are more than half the number of votes cast in the presidential election. Therefore, Mnangagwa Emmerson Mnangagwa of ZANU-PF party is therefore duly declared elected president of the Republic of Zimbabwe with effect from the 3rd of August 2018.
Chamisa says the opposition will challenge the election results and claims that he won significantly. He says Zimbabwe's government is not legitimate. The Movement for Democratic Change spokesman Morgan Komichi is calling the election results a sham.
They are fake, they are not authentic, we're not part of it. Those are really figures from ZEC. So as far as we're concerned, we reject them, we don't respect them. And we can pronounce today that the elections were fraudulent.
President Mnangagwa countered by saying, quote, "We won the election freely and fairly and have nothing to hide or fear." Tendai Mugadi, a ZANU-PF supporter, is pleased with the poll outcome.
We are happy and we are hoping for a lot. Our new president has been telling us a lot of things that he is promising us. This is a new Zimbabwe, new dispensation. We are happy. As the youth, we are also willing to support our president.
Mnangagwa takes over Zimbabwe's leadership amid tension and chaos in which 6 people have died in an army crackdown on opposition protests. For more insight on the unfolding scenario in Zimbabwe, I'm joined by Leon Hartwell, a Southern Africa political analyst who has lived in Zimbabwe and written extensively on the nation's politics. Leon, welcome to Africa 54 again.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Leon, we have a post-election violence going on in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
With Nelson Chamisa standing his ground that this is not legitimate and he is going to fight this. What do you think is going to be the final result of what we are seeing unfolding in that Southern African country?
I don't see that there's going to be a change of leadership at the top, despite the fact that the MDC is claiming that this election was rigged. The opposition has not yet showed concrete evidence to demonstrate that the results were cooked. I think part of this also relates to the electoral process. Some of the unfairness that we've seen in terms of media coverage and so on, which favored ZANU-PF. But those aspects in terms of freeness and fairness are much harder to prove than, say, for example, images of ballot boxes that were stuffed or concrete evidence to show that.
There's fear of tension continuing to rise. We've seen today journalists being kicked out of a press conference that Chamisa was going to hold. We've seen chaos in the streets of Harare. We've had even people being told, get out of here. The elections were announced 11 p.m. Harare time. What does that tell you of what is likely to happen in the next couple of days?
It's true that we've seen some chaos in Harare and that Nelson Chamisa had a press conference which was disrupted by the police, but at the end they were also allowed to continue with their press conference. I think it largely relates to this hangover of what happened during the Mugabe years, and Zimbabwe still needs to deal with that. At the same time, Mnangagwa has very quickly condemned what happened, and he said, we need to do away with this. The police can't just act in that way. The question is what is going to happen in the future, and I think it depends on how the opposition responds to this. If they continue to say, well, this election wasn't rigged, they might push people to go to the streets and so on. But at the same time, some people might just say, you know, let's just move forward because we would rather have stability than see the military on the streets again.
What about the critics who say, and very quickly, that Mnangagwa's leadership may largely be influenced by the military who put him in power in the first place?
It's interesting because when I lived in Zimbabwe, I remember a particular conversation with Mnangagwa, who was defense minister at the time, and I was trying to pick his legal mind because he was, you know, he has a degree in law. And I asked him about that, and he said to me, well, I'm a military man. And I think that fear came out in the post-election scenario. But I think he's been very conciliatory after the election.
Do you think they will influence his leadership, or he will, you know, does he have to toe the line because they put him there very quickly? Is it a yes or no? Or you think he will have his own opinion?
He has to tread carefully. And I think what we saw with both the police and the military being deployed might show some divisions within at the very top. It looks like one hand didn't quite know what the other one was doing.
Leon, thank you very much.